Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. It's going to take me a second to get this shared out. So just bear with me as I get this squared away and get this shared. Wow, what a massive performance. Lot to talk about. Lots to talk about. Wow. Getting this shared out. Just bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Just going to take a couple of seconds here. Give you guys time to come into the live video. I will read comments at the end. If you guys want to send in a super chat or something like that, you guys can. A donation. All right, one more share and we'll be good to go. And then we're really going to rock this out. Your boy's going to get after it. He's going to get after it. All right, so here we go. I think that's probably good for now. Iowa, I did a halftime show for this game, and I said in the halftime show that there was some things that I was optimistic about seeing with the Iowa offense. The Iowa defense was lights out, as it always is, totally killing it, flying all over the field. This Iowa defense, guys, is just supremely talented. I mean, in my preseason previews, I said many times that the talent that is across this Iowa defense on every single level it's just superb. And there's even plenty of room for guys to step into a larger role that maybe it was hard to predict or give a solid preseason prognostication. But for example, on the defensive line, I said many times in my defensive line preview, my Iowa defensive preview, I said that this Iowa defense, or excuse me, defensive line has the talent. They have the freaks up there that they need, the workhorses, but it's just not totally proven yet. You know, we don't have a guy that's like a returning All-American on the defensive line. For example, like a Jay Higgins or a Nick Jackson, you know what they are. But there were some guys who were potential breakout players. Deontay Craig, pretty much the entire starting defensive line, specifically YA or IA Black and Aaron Graves. I would say even more specifically, Aaron Graves. He totally dominated. He was a man amongst boys out there. He definitely had 2 sacks. He may have finished with more. I'm going to share in a moment my screen so you guys can see the stats. Heck, I may as well just do it right now, right? Totally dominated. And it was good to see. I mean, this guy honestly should have been a borderline 5-star prospect. He did great at the high school All-American game. The only reason why Aaron Graves was not higher in his recruiting is due to him being committed to Iowa since his sophomore season. And sometimes that hurts recruits because, at least on the recruiting services, because they don't go to the camps, they don't go to the regional camps, and they don't get out in front of some of these recruiting experts, so to speak. And especially if you're a multi-sport athlete like Aaron Graves is, you just don't have time. Give me 1 second, guys, while I close my window in my office here. So this is not a surprise. The guy is 6'5", or 6'4", 6'5". He's huge. He came in as a defensive end. That Iowa converted him to a very, very athletic and strong, gifted defensive tackle. And honestly, I think it was the right move. I don't think he was a pure defensive end. Perhaps he could have played strong side defensive end, but his body is more akin, especially, and this is just the strength of the Iowa football program is their weight room. They see a guy like Aaron Graves, who a lot was being recruited as a defensive end. A lot of people saw him as a defensive end. When he committed to Iowa, he was a defensive end. They see him and see how his body has matured, especially after graduating from high school. And they can see, oh no, this guy's a defensive tackle. And you look at him, absolutely he's a defensive tackle. But Iowa also, across the defensive line, recruits guys that they think can play anywhere across the defensive line. They try and get guys that are multifaceted, that can play anywhere across the defensive line. They do occasionally get pure defensive tackles, pure defensive ends, if they're really high on a guy. But their recruiting philosophy is to just get a guy that's athletic, that has the strength required to play across the defensive line. So that's great. Across the defense, it was lights out. The pass pro, or not pass pro, the defensive pass game was great. The secondary did excellent. There was very little daylight at all for Illinois State to get anything going in the air, on the ground, anything. The passing lanes were small, limited. Their defense looked really athletic. They always look really athletic, but today, I mean, it seemed even more so. The depth, the starters across the board, they played great defensively. I mean, this very well might be the best defense that we have ever seen in the Kirk Ferentz era, and that really is saying something, because of just how unbelievably talented Phil Parker is as a defensive coordinator. And I mean, the last 5 years, some of the defenses that Phil Parker has had have been elite. So I was very excited to see that. The secondary, I was very impressed with. It was good to see John Nestor. I think TJ Hall did good in his starting left cornerback duties. John Nestor is obviously the third cornerback. Deshaun Lee will circle in there, but I think if you were to rank it based off of today's action, it would be Jamari Harris 1, TJ Hall 2, John Nestor 3, Deshaun Lee 4. All right, guys, now let's talk about, actually, before we get to the offense, last thing, special teams. I was impressed with Reese Dakin, the new punter, is picking up right where Tory Taylor left off. I'm not expecting him to have a Tory Taylor type season, but he's still, the expectation, especially for a LeVar Woods coached special teams, is for him to be good, bordering on, or excuse me, above average, bordering on good to great. And he looked good to great today. He pinned them deep multiple times. He showed command of the ball while punting it and putting it exactly where he wants to put it. Now, the real question for a punter and any special teams player is what are you able to do in games like Iowa versus Iowa State, a game like Iowa versus Ohio State on the road. That is the true testament of the skill level of a special teamer. Caden Wetschin showed wiggle the entire game. He had a touchdown that was returned back. I think it was a punt return touchdown that was called back. It was the correct call. It definitely was a block in the back, a stupid block in the back for Deshaun Lee, but it is what it is. But he showed tremendous wiggle. I can see why the coaches are high on him. Drew Stevens played great. One note, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a play in the game. It was in the second half, and it was a kickoff return. I think it was the first kickoff return of the second half. And it went back for a touchback. And LeVar Woods, like the ball sailed over Caleb Johnson's head. There was no question he should not run it out. And it landed 3 yards into the end zone. And LeVar Woods immediately blasts Caleb Johnson. You can see in the clip, he is just screaming at Caleb Johnson. I didn't see why. I mean, I'm not sure what Caleb Johnson could have done any differently on that. Maybe he wasn't as participative and as attentive as LeVar Woods would have wanted, but it is what it is. All right, guys, now we're going to get to the offense. By the way, the only reason why I'm here today, unfortunately, is because, and I said this in the halftime show, is because I rolled my ankle in a varsity football game. I'm a sports official part-time. Very much am hopeful to do college officiating down the line for at least one of the sports that I officiate. And very painful. I've rolled my ankles many times. I actually had games that were scheduled for today to go work. And I thought it was broken initially. I have flat feet, so rolling my ankle absolutely happens all the time. When I was playing high school basketball, that was my number one injury, was having a rolled ankle. So, it is what it is. But so if you guys have any advice on how to heal a sprained ankle, please let me know. I've had it many times, so I do know a lot of the tricks. But I'm always open to more. So Seth Wallace, this was his first coach game. He did great, albeit against Illinois State. But it was good for him to have a 40-0 performance in his first head coaching game. So he is 1-0 now as a head coach. Iowa's offense, as I was saying in the halftime report, their offense was looking smoother to me. They were looking more efficient and not as restricted, not as clunky. And, I would commonly say that Brian Ferentz and the Iowa offense looked like an offensive line calling plays, or an offensive lineman calling plays, in that it was always super clunky and like it looked like it was pulling teeth getting any amount of yards. Okay, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And so today it looked a lot smoother. It looked a lot more in command and things like that. But the reason why there were points that were left on the board is because of penalties, which Iowa was over their average of last year. Last year, they averaged about 35 yards a game in penalty yards. And in the first half, they had more than that with 65. And so it was drop balls. Cade McNamara missed on a few throws, a few first down throws. He had a wide open Reese Vanderzee across the field that he totally threw in the dirt. So, but as far as the play calls and just how it looked to me, it looked better. But we weren't seeing the actual points. Then we go into the second half. Boom. So I was vindicated. I knew it was looking better. They just were not executing. And we see this absolute explosion. And then we hear the commentator. I usually don't listen to the commentators for the football games because sometimes they are ridiculous and say ridiculous things. But he said the only difference between the first half and the second half, and I thought he was absolutely correct about this, is Iowa is blocking, they're catching balls, and they're not having penalties. And it's true. That is the difference. That was the whole difference right there. The offensive line, I thought, kept the pocket relatively clean today. They did open up some holes. It wasn't the best day in the world rushing, but I would say it was above average. If we can have this performance every single game, I'll take it. The offensive line did just fine. Was it, good enough to win the Jim Moore Award? No. Okay. But it was sufficient. It was good enough. And a lot of that was predicated on the pass. Cade McNamara and the passing game opening up the run, which led to the first Caleb Johnson touchdown. Cade McNamara ended the game with 3 touchdowns. Let's go to the player stats here. Jake Ruble, aka Jake Ruble, the West Des Moines 4-star product who actually committed to Kansas State, spurned Iowa. That was one of the very few state of Iowa players that Iowa did not get in that class. That was one of the best recruiting classes that the state of Iowa has ever produced. And Iowa had a top 25 recruiting class because of it. I think it was 2020 or 2021. He was 1 for 7, totally kept in check today. Here's the other stats for Illinois State. All right, Cade McNamara, 21 of 31, 251 yards, 3 tubs, 0 INTs. Perfect. Okay, well, actually not perfect, but given what we saw last year, this is all we need, guys. I am totally okay with this stat line. This is all I need right here. All last year, there were Iowa fans or some Iowa fans who would say, well, we shouldn't be so hard on them and, various excuses. And it's like, no. We're not asking for elite. We're not asking for Oregon type offense or anything like that. We're just asking for average and every now and again, slightly above average. That's it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I will take this every gosh darn day or every Saturday and sometimes Thursday or Fridays of the week. Okay. Caleb Johnson, 11 carries for 119 yards, 10.8 yards a carry for 2 tubs. He had 2 big runs for touchdowns. Kamari Moulton, I liked how he looked in the first half. He showed some wiggle and some power. He seems a lot bigger than his 5'9" frame or height would indicate, but he did kind of slow down in the second half. And I like this 1-2 punch. LaShawn Williams, it's crazy, guys. This is why, it's impossible to predict everything within the preseason. How many of you guys, now granted, LaShawn Williams has been injured, but how many of you guys would have guessed that LaShawn Williams would be reverted to the 3rd string running back after last year being the starting tailback with 800 yards? It's crazy. But still, this was a fine performance. LaShawn Williams, he did have a rough day. I'll take this every day of the week as well. So the big bright spot of today is most notably Reese Vanderzee, the true freshman out of Central Lyon in Grand Rapids, Iowa, I believe it is. He was a big get for Iowa. It came down to Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa State usually has the edge when it comes to landing wide receiver prospects because they've been better at producing NFL talent at the wide receiver position. But the connection that Iowa had with Central Lyon High School, ultimately, as Iowa landed one of their players in the class before in Zach Lutmer, and then they also got the preferred walk-on in Graham. His name is Graham Levin or something like that. Preferred walk-on. Ultimately led to him choosing the Iowa Hawkeyes. The familiarity, the familial connection was there. He had a huge game. If this is what we can see, and at Central Lyon, he played quarterback primarily, although everybody was recruiting him as wide receiver. If this is what he can be, more or less, man, this Iowa offense is already way further ahead than previously predicted. And keep in mind, they were without Caleb Brown today. Reese Vanderzee is a true freshman, and the one thing that the wide receiver group has been missing is a big-bodied wide receiver at the X position that's 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". I think Reese Vanderzee is actually 6'5". That is a excellent possession wide receiver that can go up and get 50-50 balls, as we saw multiple times, including one for a touchdown where he leapt over. Cade McNamara kind of threw up a prayer in the end zone, but he trusted Reese Vanderzee to go up and get it, which is exactly what he did. Reese Vanderzee, to me, is absolutely the bright spot today. This is positive news. The second would be Jacob Gill, the transfer from Northwestern. He had a nice day. It was good to see him. 3 receptions, 46 yards. He caught many passes, or I would say all 3 of his passes were caught in traffic with a guy hanging on him and immediate contact being made. So it's good to see that he's sure-handed there. Zach Ortworth, 1 for 31, and Addison Ostrenga, 3 for 25. As you guys can tell, the Iowa wide receiver tight end room is still top dog. It is interesting to note Seth Anderson. I don't know if he's injured or what, but he did not have a catch today. So, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. So that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, you could not, I'm going to read comments here in just 1 second. You could not ask for a better performance offensively. I mean, the only thing that you could maybe have asked for that could be better, obviously you can always score more points, but would be maybe if Iowa was a little bit, if they scored 20 of their 40 in the first half rather than 34 in the second half and 6 in the first. So, but 40 points is still 40 points, whether it's spread out amongst 2 halves or all in 1 half. So, and it's good to me. It's good to know that Iowa's offense under Tim Lester is capable of having a massive output in 1 half. It's good to know that push comes to shove, the offense can muster 30 plus points in a half of football if need be. That's very good to know. So if I were to grade the Iowa offensive performance, I would give it a B plus or an A. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it's ahead of schedule. I did not see Iowa scoring over 30 points today. So, my prediction was Iowa was going to win this game. I think I said 27-10 or something like that. So, the offense, B plus A, I'd probably give it a A. Defense, nearing a A plus performance. Special teams, A. I mean, it really was a great performance all the way around. Again, though, it's only Illinois State. All right, I'm going to read the comments real quick, see what you guys have to say, and then we're going to get out of here. It's good to be back, guys. It's crazy how fast the season rolls around. It seemed like forever. It's just like the season wraps up, and then you have this period in between the football seasons, and you're like, man, last season was just here. And then we're already here now. So I'll take it. Cody Zickfoos, the second half was a thing of beauty. I totally agree. Beautiful performance. Edric Brown, like your hat. Thank you. I got this. New era. This is not the classic 5950. This is not the standard 5950 that you see in Major League with the bigger headpiece. It's the I forget what it's called, but essentially it comes where the brim is already folded down, but this part is a little bit shorter. So luckily I got it for a good deal. So if we can play like this in the second half, it will be a great year for Iowa football. I totally agree. If Iowa can play like this at 90% of the rest of the season, hell, even 80%, the college football playoff is totally within reach, given how amazing this Iowa defense is. And so I could not agree more. Fast Outdoor Food, good to see you post game. Is this new? No, I've been having the YouTube channel for, I would say, 2.5 years now. I used to do Facebook Live. A while back, I actually did some Facebook videos with Cavante Martin Manley before all the allegations and all that stuff came out. So I've been doing this spottedly for the last, I would say, 5 years, but the YouTube channel has been within the last 3 years. And so we went live last year multiple times, every single game pretty much. And if I have the time, I do the post game live. If I don't, because of work and things like that, I'm a football official, water polo. I mean, I officiate a lot of sports at the high school and collegiate level. Then I just post a post game reaction rather than going live. Um, Tala Tony, I'm crying. It was so beautiful. Well, dry them tears. We still got 10 more games to go, dude. Mark and Becky, good old amazing second half of offense, heart, and with some players not playing. True. That's true. Caleb Brown was out. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully it only gets better from here. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. Could not have been better. I'm extremely pleased with the performance. The big test is going to be Iowa State. Illinois State is again only Illinois State, and quite honestly, this is what Iowa should do against an opponent like this. So while I'm optimistic and happy to see it, at the same token, I realize that this is not, a power four level opponent. So I want to temper expectations a little bit. But again, given where we were at last year, it's a huge couple of steps in the right direction. All right, guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy with facts or feelings, because your feelings just matter. I love you guys. Thank you guys so much